Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. It is Thrawn's Revenge here with another video. Sorry I don't sound too great. I'm a bit sick, but I decided to make this video anyways because it was a little bit easier to edit than normal. On Saturday, me and Legomationstudios and All Out Brick interviewed Caleb from Lego Masters Season 2. So I'll be going straight into the interview questions and skipping kind of the intro as I'm giving you the intro now. So if you like the video, please, like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff, and sit back, relax, and enjoy the video.
Good.
Wait, are you good, Throd?
Yep, I'm good. We can
Okay,
start.
all right. In 3, 2, 1. All right, everyone. Today we are lucky enough to be joined by Caleb from Lego Masters Season 2. I want to thank Thrawn for really reaching out and making this possible. And, of course, you, Caleb, for coming on and being willing to open yourself up. And this is just going to be a really fun time kind of asking you all sorts of questions. I know there's some things we have to refrain away from. We got the finale next week. But other than that, excited to be here. Yeah, thank you for coming.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Totally. And I'm joined by Christian from All Out Brick.
Hey, Caleb, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a blast watching you throughout the show and to be able to interact with you, and you kind of followed along with our live streams after the fact. This is awesome, man. We appreciate it.
Hey, no problem. No problem.
Totally. And then also we have Thrawn from Thrawn's Revenge here. Thanks for putting it all together, by the way.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you so much, Caleb, for being here. And I am also streaming this on Twitch, so...
Yeah. Now, I have a bunch of questions. There's some things obviously we can't get into, but in general, I would say just my first startup question is, going into this show, there's probably a whole process of auditioning. They talk to different people, they interviewed you and your brother. And I guess when they probably interview, they ask you your skill sets and everything. So my first question is, what skill do you think you took into the show that I say helped you out the most? Like a skill you've learned over the last, years and years of your Lego building life. What would you say is that one skill that came in handy the most during all of these challenges?
Yeah, for sure. I think the biggest thing that I found benefiting myself was the ability to build fast. And Lego Masters is obviously the perfect environment in which you want to be able to build fast. And I think that stemmed from mostly my college career because I was quite a distance from home, quite a distance away from the Lego. And so my only time to build was that occasional weekend, Christmas break. And so when I got home, you better believe it was just pedal to the metal, build as fast as you can. And that really trained up this sense in me that I was always on the clock, even before I was on Lego Masters. And granted, I had days of time when I was building mocks for conventions over those spare weekends, but these were at a much larger scale, a little more detailed. So the pacing was more or less the same. And another competition I took part in was Vin Week, which is hosted by Rebel Lug. But basically the gist of the contest is that you're supposed to build one vignette size build per day for a week. And so I got really good at pumping out a lot of builds and trying to overcome creative fatigue, which was huge on the show because while, it airs once a week, we're filming these episodes back to back to back. So building fast and staying motivated throughout that were skills that I had going in, which made a huge difference, I found out.
Totally. I'll hand it over to Thrawn. You have a question?
Yeah, so I was wondering, when they're doing the filming for this, are you guys, when they say, oh, you have 12 hours, is this a full 12 hours, or is it broken up? And when you, if it is broken up, how do you get back into gear of, I'm stopping now, but I have to get back into it later?
So with that, thankfully there were breaks. I think that's the important part to address here. That
right.
we were fed, and we did sleep in between filming. So sometimes episodes did span over multiple days, just because of the nature of that. We were given warning, probably even as much as half an hour out, at least 10 minutes, hey, we're in a pause and give you a break in 10 minutes. So we were able to get to a point where we felt comfortable pausing because we knew it was coming. And it was very clear, when we were all starting up again, too. There was a countdown into the restart. But I can't stress enough that everyone was very much held to, say, that 12 hours. If there was 12 hours, everybody got that 12 hours to the second.
Yeah, that was always something on my mind. Even with season 1, it's like they're getting fed, right? Like they're getting some sleep. I can't imagine like a 14-hour build straight, just like all heads in, So that's good to know. That's it. That's a good question. Yeah.
It is
Christian.
So I have a question about kind of what that community is like. I think every time we watch an episode, even the Brickmasters, when they're telling someone they're eliminated, everyone seems to get a little bit emotional, and it feels like it's a very tight-knit group. The LEGO community as a whole is a really tight-knit group. What was the environment like when shooting was done for the day, or you guys had some spare time? Like, were you hanging out with teams and forming relationships, bonding with them, maybe even building with them a little bit, or how was that like?
Oh, yeah. That's the greatest thing I took away from this show is the people I met. And we grew very close, to say the least. Part of it's just going through this insanely difficult, challenging time, and we have each other. We're all going through this together. No matter what, that's going to create a lot of strong relationships because we have that shared experience. Not sleeping at night, being stressed about whatever's coming the next day. And we were all in that crazy environment together. And this was shot a good time ago when COVID restrictions were very strict, to say the least. So the only people we could see were each other. In fact, we were not allowed to leave our hotel building at all, so we had to order food in at night and things like that. And so there were definitely times, where we'd be like, hey, want to hang out in so-and-so's room tonight? Perhaps the best story I have, it was the weekend before the first elimination, and we knew that was going to be the last time we'd all be together, because episode 1 had been the non-elim, but someone was probably going to be eliminated Monday or Tuesday. And so the entire group got together. Wayne ordered sushi for everyone, and we met in the hotel conference room, and we had the Lego Masters convention. Everyone had brought a build along with them for some B-roll shots. And so we set up those personal builds around the room. We got each other to sign items for the whole cast to have, a signed whatever. A lot of it was like Lego kits. But that was our first great all cast bonding experience. And the other great one too, I believe, was after episode 6. We all got to go to a national monument together in Georgia, and we got to take a hike together, and it was really beautiful and great to spend time with those people. I mean, I don't have negative feelings towards anyone. It's a really solid group of people.
That's awesome. That's incredible.
That's
Yeah,
awesome,
I
man.
was always wondering, how did COVID affect it? Because, yeah, you were shooting during the pandemic, and now that definitely makes sense. You guys were kind of kept in your hotel rooms, obviously. It was very much no connection with the outer world. I know season 1, I was going to also ask you because, there are moments where Will in season 1 says, oh, we're in the valley. And I'm like, oh, California? But then in this season, it looks like they shot in Georgia, right? So you were in Georgia the whole time.
Yeah, exactly. So again, that was due to the COVID climate of the time. LA was still shut.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's a lot cheaper to do the production.
Yeah. Definitely a lot cheaper. That's awesome. Cool. Yeah, it's great to know too that you guys had more of that bonding. I'll definitely say between you guys and Mark and Steven, that friendly competition you constantly were working on there. Now I see so much more that because you guys are probably hanging out every other night and watching movies together, playing games together, all that stuff. So that's really interesting to know that underlying subtext that you guys were all everyone was just very close. So I'm sure it was even worse to see anyone go because it's oh man, we're gonna lose another person from the friend group.
Yeah, and we're scattered all across the country too. We've got people from California, we've got people in Atlanta, and then I'm from Minnesota. And so
Right.
you don't know when you're going to see these people again. And obviously, we're all trying to make conventions and stuff, but it's never going to work for everybody. I don't know if we'll all ever be in the same room again. And so it was hard, yeah, because it's at least going to be a few months, and emotions are crazy at the time. Like
Yeah,
we're all
for
under so
sure.
much
Yeah.
pressure, and so it was pretty easy to just like, you know,
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
imagine.
It's like it's like a very long summer camp, but like Lego. Like that's insane. That's awesome. So my next question is, so I first asked like what skill taking into the show. Now, after the experience of being on Lego Masters, what have you come away from that you'd say you definitely benefited from and it's only enhanced your Lego building?
Yeah, the big thing, of course, and I think this is going to be the same for a lot of people who come off the show, is just the use of color, and because they pressure they really stress that on the show. They want your builds to be vibrant and fun to look at. And as a person who typically has done a lot of gray castles, I think that was a good wake up call for me. And I think even more importantly, though, was just go. Amy and Jamie really encouraged Jacob and I especially to be imaginative with our builds. Be ridiculous almost. I think back to our castle build from this past week. It was a ridiculous story, but it was so much fun, and it's a fun short story to share with people. It's something you can go show at a convention, and people are going to laugh as they pass by because they can see what's happening. And I love that idea that your builds can convey emotion and some universal quality to it, that transcends language. And I think that's something that Lego Masters taught us that we should embrace a little more. Just go nuts, share something funny, something full of life, full of color, and it's going to bring a lot of joy to people.
That's
Nice.
awesome. Yeah, whenever I talk with Thrawn and Christian, like post our little live shows, it's like, yeah, we just love your guys' ability to tell stories. You came into it and then came out just with like those incredible stories. Like, yeah, with the most recent castle that you guys did, just the story you're telling with the collapsing bridge and the fishermen and like just everything that you can see going on. It's like you're watching a little movie almost. So yeah, that's also just what a skill to be able to hone in on. And I mean, that's like incredibly beneficial to, I think, be put under the strict guidelines, and the remarks that the judges made really helped further your guys' abilities. And yeah, that's awesome to know you walked away with that for sure. Yeah, I liked what you said, just go all out, go crazy, and see where it goes from there. Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Thrawn, you can go ahead.
Yeah, so my question, after the show, would you say that your contact with the other contestants is still like really solid? Like, are you guys constantly talking to each other on internet or like Messenger or something? And as you guys both move forward as like all of you as builders, how would you see like continued interactions with y'all?
I mean, our contact is constant. I just before I came on here, I was on Moto's stream for a few minutes, and
Oh,
there
awesome.
Nice.
there was 9 other of the contestants hanging out there, and they do that every Saturday. And I've told this story many times. We have a 24-person group chat on Telegram, and every day there's at least 50 messages in that.
Wow, that's great.
So yeah, everyone's still really tight. We're actually super excited because a lot of people. I'm unfortunately not going, but there is going to be a finale viewing party in Salt Lake City, and I believe 17 of the 24 contestants are going to be there.
That's
which
impressive.
is super awesome. So yeah, this is a close knit group of people, and they're willing to do some crazy things just to see each other again, and I love that.
That's great.
Definitely.
Oh my god.
I got to share
Yeah.
this story too.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
But I just got married just over a month ago, and
Oh,
actually,
congrats.
Congratulations, Caleb.
That's amazing.
Dave Coletta made the trip to come to my wedding, which was so awesome. Like,
Yeah.
Wow.
It's probably a 6-7 hour drive one way to get there, and so like that was really cool. So yeah, it's a great group.
That's incredible. Yeah. Christian, you can go ahead.
So my question comes as a result of that ski lodge challenge that you guys had.
Oh no.
And I'm sure you can understand where this is going with the snakes. So when I saw the snakes, first thing that went through my mind is Indiana Jones. Are there very strict policies or limitations that are made aware to you about certain things that can or cannot be built? Like, are you not allowed to use any IPs? And if you do, you have to scrap it. Is there any kind of limitation with that?
Definitely. There is just a flat rule. No copyright to anything, just to avoid that problem. There was a funny story Steven told. He was wearing a NASA shirt. I believe it was for the windmill challenge, because that's the episode they went space. And they ran into huge problems that he has the NASA shirt. So it's like, even things that seem fairly safe, like NASA, a government organization, could cause big problems for the production. So that was just never an option. As far as I could tell, I didn't even think there were references to any IPs that you could pick out in the build. So there's just some things that are off limits. Anything political, anything religious, and that's totally valid. Just like keep it neutral and copyright free. So yeah, as much as I would have liked to have said, why did it have to be snakes on camera? It was never gonna make.
That's great. All right, my next question is, obviously it sounds like, so you're shooting in Georgia, so I'm assuming like Will had to like fly out and be there for a lot more, because when they were shooting in LA, it was probably a lot easier for him as a host to like be going home every day. So what would you say like was behind the scenes, if you're allowed to, like your guys' relationship with Will in any way? Were there moments of like talking about this bit we're gonna do, or just a kind of any casual moments with him that like you can recall that you can share?
He stole my question.
Yeah. So unfortunately, this applies to both the judges and Will. There's just no off-camera interaction at all. They're not on set as long as we are,
Right.
which is totally valid. For that first challenge, we didn't expect them to stand in the front of the room for 14 hours while we built.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. They have limited hours, and they stayed at a different hotel than we did. And so there was only two instances that I remember where Will actually gave personal goodbyes to two of the teams who were eliminated earlier on. And that was really cool to see, for those teams to have that moment with Will, because they had bonded really well set together. And so he was able to say thank you so much for being on the show. It was a joy to have you, and send them on their way. And that was a really, really cool moment. But for pretty obvious reasons, we couldn't interact with the judges at all.
Right.
Just because
Yeah.
they can't show favoritism.
Totally.
They wanted, interacting with us made those eliminations harder for them too. Like, even with just the limited interactions that we had on set, you can see that it tore them up too. Like even Jamie, when Dave and Richard went, his voice cracked. I was like, dang, that's real.
Yeah,
So-
that's awesome.
With that, you said they're obviously going to be only on set for a certain time. Are the cameras constantly rolling? Because obviously you want to catch if something major happens, like if someone's build falls over. Are there certain times where there's just no one there and cameras rolling, or even when no cameras are rolling and it's just you building?
Yes. And I'm not going to go into too much detail on this one. But I believe there's even a disclaimer at the end of each episode that says not everything is filmed. It's just unrealistic to have a crew out there for 14 hours of a 14-hour build. And so it just does. They don't catch everything. There was probably only one dramatic instance that happened off camera. It was probably for the best that it happened off camera. But there was no like huge building collapses or anything like that. you better believe that they're there for the start and for the end. Sometimes some of that dead in the middle stuff, a few hours, doesn't get captured. But we know Lego Masters. Let's be real. Like, the build process is not what's important on this show. Like, the only reason they're there is they're hoping to catch either, you know, a significant connection being made. For instance, Zach and Wayne's castle going on top of their bridge last episode. They want to be there for moments like that.
Right.
Exactly. And then to see if you finish by the time. That's the big thing.
Gotcha.
Totally. Yeah, that makes sense. Like, I'm assuming there's just these moments of silence where it's just bricks clicking, and it's like, that's, you know, there's some moments where the camera guys have to be like, all right, let's take a breather, let's take a step back, let them do
I want
their
that
thing.
ASMR footage.
Yeah. At each table. Thrawn, you got a big question, you can go.
Yeah. Piggybacking off of All Out Bricks question. Oh, I lost my train of thought. Sorry, I've been having a headache most of the day. Zach, you go. I'll think of something else.
All right. Well, this was something that during our last live show you were kind of giving us some info on, and it was something we're always curious about. But every day, would you say like, you know, you said like there was one day where these pieces suddenly appeared. Is it pretty much the same? Like each wall of pieces, or is it always the same, or were there ever days where you would notice like, oh, they added this element, or this brick is new, or oh, I didn't find these pieces like 3 episodes ago, now we have this? Did that happen very frequently at all, or was it very rare?
Very rare. Excuse me. The only instance that I remember a new piece being brought out was for episode 9, the Land and Sea Challenge, when they brought out, it was probably 33 centimeter light blay flex tube pieces. And at that time, the challenge manager actually came to each individual workstation. He's like, we're putting these in the brick pit. It's a bunch of flex tube. And he like came around and showed everyone individually, you know, when we're all split up and at our own workstations. And I think the reason for that, there's two. Flex tube, once it's been used, it's usually permanently damaged in some way when you get the kinks in it, right? And it's just a soft plastic. It's easy to scrape away at it. So even if you're sliding bricks down through it, like the 1x1 cylinders, you're still going to shave away at the plastic. And if they had unleashed those episode 1, people would have been pretty excited. Nobody gets that much flex tube, and we probably would have used it all up, and it would have had to been tossed. Second reason, I think, too, they're looking for a lot more organic shapes for a sculpting challenge, and so that seems like a really appropriate time to bring it out. But for the most part, the brick pit was almost identical every day. The only thing that might happen is we run out of a brick like in its entirety, and a new brick might have taken its place. But typically, when a brick was emptied out, there was more offset somewhere, and somebody refilled it. Because like the brick pit is huge. You get a few of those wide shots. There's a lot of brick there. There's more brick up in the front of the room than anybody has. But offset, there is pallets upon pallets of extra brick. 5 million bricks is
wow,
mind-boggling to see. You know, like, just tubs and tubs. Wow, yeah, it was nuts.
That's
Gotcha.
amazing. Like
I got
kid in a candy store.
So I got a question. I noticed in the show that it feels like a lot of the builds you guys do are kind of color themed. Like it feels like no one's using kind of the same colors. Are those colors chosen in advance, or do you guys try to stay away from using other people's color palettes? Or like how is that kind of decided, or is that just on accident?
Yeah, so a real obvious example, perhaps, is going to be the hat challenge, where those colors were predetermined. But you know, we all ran up at the beginning of the episode to grab an outfit, and each of them was a different color. So there's things like that. But there's also, for example, it's hinted at in the demo derby as well, where I think it was Jen and Susan who said, we had the color green, but we are given colors to build. We basically drew out of, for order and picking your color. And so that was determined before the episode. And the reason for that is just so you can tell, like, hey, so-and-so have the brown car, or so-and-so have this. It makes it a little, when they're driving around, it makes it a little more easy to distinguish. Any other instances of color, I think were just us trying to make something unique. I don't know, would there be any other? Probably not. I think we all kind of just lucked out in the land and sea challenge that there was a lot of unique colors going on there, because you have the green of Wayne's crocodile, orange of the lionfish, red lobster, blue chameleon, black penguin, and it was like there was actually really good variety there just by chance.
Right, totally. Gotcha. Christian, do you have a question?
Yeah, so out of all of these challenges, one of the things that LEGO Masters seems to do very well is surprise you with a challenge that the general audience has never heard of, and maybe even you guys have never worked on. Was there a challenge that you wished you had 2 extra hours on, and if so, which one?
There's 2 challenges that come to mind. So episode 10's Flip My Block. There was some struggling there. I don't know if 2 hours could have even saved that build, but I like to think it would have. And the other one too that was really, really hard was the Make and Shake, the earthquake shake plate. Just 8 hours to build such an enormous structure was such a crazy task. I really think that should have been a 10 build. Because I was not happy with how ours ended up looking, because we spent so much time trying to design this weird tire technique, and we just, we were just slapping on details at the end. We really did not like how that build looked, and we thought that we might get sent home right away there, but thankfully we pulled through. But yeah, those are the challenges I would have liked to have seen some more time.
Yeah, that one definitely seemed like everyone kind of used more time. I mean, you described how you guys were so focused on your system, and I believe it was Moto and Paris who was so enveloped in their Technic structure that they basically just put plates on the outside. It kind of seemed like every team coming out of that challenge was like, we kind of needed a little bit more.
No.
Yeah, that was a struggle. Yeah, way to stress this out, like from the get-go. Episode 3, and no, that was episode 4, but we're still wait, episode 3. I know what's going on. But anyway, yeah, we were all sweating bullets. That was a little too short of a time.
What's another question I have? Oh yeah, I guess. Well, you kind of answered it there, but maybe if there's a question outside of the show, I'm trying to think. What would you say? What build on the show would you say was the furthest out of your wheelhouse as far as what you and your brother are usually used to working on? What was the challenge that you would say was the most complicated, the most different from things outside of the show that you've built before that really kind of stretched the boundaries for you guys?
Sure. Ironically, that would be the Demo Derby. That's obviously one of my favorite episodes. It was so funny to watch. It's just like, and I told my fiance at the time, episode 6 is going to be the Caleb and Jacob episode for reasons, neither good nor bad. And it was funny because I did a segment with Jacob on my YouTube channel where we talked about going into there. And every day we had a new challenge on Lego Masters. I went in there praying, please don't be the car episode. So I am not ready for the car episode. And you better believe, start of episode 6, I'm behind the doors and I'm just like, don't be the car episode. We round the corner and we see the little Lambo up there and oh my God, it's the car episode. And so we went in dreading that thing. And it turns out we can build cars anyway. Never built any sort of vehicle, but it worked out. Honestly, the Sunshine Wagon, despite what happened, it was definitely one of our favorite builds on the show. It was a really cool looking model.
No, yeah, and it's awesome you guys were able to recreate it too. And in general, I think That's interesting to note that the one day you were dreading was the actual day that like you guys stood out in that episode. You were kind of almost like main character as far as what was going on. Everyone was on your side too. We wanted to see a little more action there.
Oh,
It was so unfortunate they had that giant gap in the ramp. I mean,
Yeah, I know.
that's probably like one of the most memorable moments I think so far in the season. When as soon as they open the gates, just straight off.
and like I tell everyone, because I get this question a lot, did you do it on purpose? And I wish I could sit here today and tell you I did that on purpose because I would retain some sort of dignity. But that was just a pure adrenaline-induced mistake. It was so sad.
Oh man.
Yeah.
But it made for some incredible comedy. And
Oh, it
watching that episode, it was the first episode I saw with my fiance at the time. And I made the trip. I drove like 150 miles that day. I'm like, we got to see this episode. And I wasn't even feeling all that good, but like, she's just like, oh my gosh, she's in shock, and I'm just cackling because I of course know what happens. But it's very entertaining, and I loved reading just the comments on that episode because it was so positive. It was just like, did you see the sunshine wagon?
Yeah. Well, that was a good one.
Yeah, definitely. I got another question. So when you guys are deciding on the tablets what your rough design is, do you already have visioned roughly the parts you're going to use, or when you go up to the brick bins, do you kind of get a sense of which direction it's going to go based off of what you see first? Or like, how do you categorize in your mind taking this larger than life structure that you plan to make and then executing it in the time you have?
Sure. So, like, the brick pit is obviously huge. There's a lot of variety in there, but it's not the typical palette of parts that I would work with. I mean, everybody on the show is much more a detail-oriented sort of person. We're looking at a lot more smaller parts, minifigure accessories, for example. But that's not something you're going to find in the brick pit, because the purpose of the brick pit is to try to get you to build as big as possible for TV. So you're looking at a lot more of your standard 2x4s. The plate selection was incredible. Every color of 1x1s ever produced pretty much was up there, which was really awesome. But again, there's only so much you can do with 1x1 plates. So those first few episodes, they were hard, just because I didn't know what to expect to be up there. And even some of the parts that were in season 1 did not seem to be out on the floor of season 2. But we also had more parts than season 1. I think the most notable change that we get a lot of smack talk from the season 1 builders for is we had dot elements. So that was Amy's contribution to set, of course, but we had the 1x1 quarter tiles. And things like that, which were super fun, and you can see them utilized in every episode. Somebody pulled those out because they're great detail parts. But that's about as small as you got. So it took a few episodes to learn like where things were first of all, because we didn't get time off camera to go and look where things were. You had to learn that while the show was being filmed. But eventually, you figure out the palette, you figure out what's at your disposal. And so that second half, I think it became a lot easier to determine like, hey, I know exactly what this part could be, and I know where to find it.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. Now, my next question, and it's something that I guess if it's too much behind the scenes, you don't need to answer, but I'm always wondering this because I'm like in the industry out here in California. I know kind of how reality television is made. If you're allowed to answer, my question is, do most of these interviews, right? The interviews that you guys have set up, which kind of help like narrate the episodes. That's how these TV shows are sort of made. Do most of them happen after each episode, or is it really at the end of the season that you guys have those interviews set up?
So that schedule worked that it wasn't just all at once. It happened throughout the production.
Right. Okay.
Typically, it would be after the filming of 2 episodes, we would do the trailer interview.
Yeah, that's cool. That's good to know. It's always interesting to me because I'm sure for you, it's like that all that drama and all that stuff that goes on during the episodes, having to look back on that and then like narrate, like think back at what was it like during those moments, what was going through my head, because that's how they do these shows. It's like when something breaks, you go and they get that in the interview later on. Like that must be fun to do too. I'm sure, like being able to sit there and like kind of just let it all out.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. It was always funny what came out, especially with my brother. In the interviews, there was times he was savage. Holy crap!
He was.
Yeah, it was fun. Well, maybe I shouldn't say fun, but it was good to have some space sometimes in between events before you recap it. The Sunshine Wagon is a prime example because in that moment, I was pissed, at myself. I remember I ran up and I kicked like a cement block. I almost broke my toe, and there's a scuff mark on the bottom of my shoe for the rest of the season. I was so furious at myself. But you kind of don't. They glossed over that because I was able to, a few days later, I knew everything was fine, and so it was good to have that because really this show they want to paint everyone in the best possible way, and I really do appreciate that about the production, that they do have everyone's best interest at heart. Like, yeah, there's drama and they're going to play up those moments, of course, but the edit, I mean, especially for my brother and I, has been so favorable. And it's been really a joy to watch. And I have no complaints. And I'm really grateful for all that work that has gone into the post process to cut some of the awkward crap that we say and replace it with actually good lines. And so it means a lot. And it was good. They really did good by us.
Nice.
Awesome. You guys got any more questions? Go for it.
All out, Burke, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So, in the time between when you found out you were going to be casted for season 2 and the start of filming, did you guys look back on any season 1 challenges and say, hey, we should come up with ideas for if something like this gets thrown at us, or we should develop more of this style of building in case something like that comes up? Or did you guys just go in with what you had knowing and didn't really practice based on what you saw in season 1?
It's confession time, boys. I've not eaten the entirety of season 1.
What?
What?
Oh man.
I came into the show probably at episode 8, I want to say, and I had seen episodes 1 and 2, but like some of the middle stuff, literally never seen.
Wow.
But thankfully, along with us on set, was the encyclopedia of Lego Masters, Moto himself. And so he was always keeping us up to date on what challenges were happening in Australia or anywhere else. It's just like, this might happen here, this might happen here. So, like, at least when we were on set, we kind of knew what might be happening. But as far as preparing for the show, my brother and I pretty much just went in with what we had. I think it's important to know, though, my brother had not built in at least 7 years before his time on Lego Masters.
Wow.
Like, the dude can build. You can tell that from
Yeah.
Yeah. But I must confess, too, that, that was a really stressful episode for me because I had no idea if he could build on his own. Because our dynamic up till that point had been like, Caleb, what should I build? I'll like recreate this thing, and he'd be like, got it. And it was a great exercise in trust, just because from that point on, I was like, this man can hold his own. I don't need to baby him. It's like he can build.
Definitely.
I don't know where he picked it up from. He didn't build like since he was like 30 years old. It was amazing.
That was one of my favorite parts of that episode, is you really got to see the dynamics of each team, and is there a certain builder that was carrying a team, or is there a certain builder that's more confident in building at a certain scale and someone else prefers another scale? And that's incredible that you said Jacob took such a long break, and seeing what he built in that episode when he was just by himself, you never would have guessed that.
No. I think his skill, though, has always been small creatures. That's what, even during the pandemic, when I'm building whatever it might be, I'm definitely an architecture guy. He would come over there and build like some sort of, his favorite is Bunny. He made this rabbit creature. It's terrifying, but it's really well sculpted for such few pieces that it has. And that was always his thing. And we even joked after the show that that lobster was the largest thing he had ever built by himself.
Wow.
Like, I know he had the pieces, he had those organic shaping skills, but never had he put it into something of that scale by himself. And so I think he was really proud of what he was able to do. He did not expect himself to be able to do that, but there's that segment with Will where he's just like, I don't care what Caleb's doing. I'm vibing over here. I enjoy being by myself. And so you can tell he's like, wow, this is actually working. I have a lot of confidence in this, and I can build. And I'm like, oh, my brother can build. It was a good moment for both of us. And I think that's what brought along the success of our castle build, for instance.
Totally.
Because Jacob built the bottom foundation. The engineering part was all him. Mm-hmm. And I built the castle. And they went together perfectly. We just did our own thing. Nobody, we said, we had some planning, hey, leave this much space for me. But, I trust you. Build your own thing. And he came up with the fish. He came up with the joust. All these wonderful details. And so it was really awesome to see him in his element with that confidence.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you built the fish, because you were talking about small creatures. I'm like, that fish would then be in his wheelhouse, huh?
Exactly. He had fun with that. It was kind of a last minute sort of thing as we're trying to figure out, why should this bridge be collapsing? Yeah. And, what a comical way to do it would be the fish.
Gotcha. Another question I have is, what part do you wish they had available that you didn't have or weren't able to use?
I knew the answer to this question at some point. When I was on set, looking for it, what was it? I think one thing that always disappointed me is that we had actually less of a minifigure selection than season 1. Because I am working my way through season 1 in its entirety.
Yeah.
But I see they had so many more torso prints than we did, where we were left with pretty generic minifigure, almost, I want to say it's just city party pack, sort of torsos. And there's no medieval stuff. So that was really hard for us to make, because we wanted to populate our scene with knights, but it ends up just being kind of crazy city folk. So that was one thing, especially since we did do a lot of minifigure scale builds. There just was not a lot of selection, and they don't want us to get too bogged down in details like that. Just having minifigures, I think, it is enough in so many cases, especially when it's just being panned by so fast for TV.
Yeah.
Right.
Get back to you on that question, because I know there were specific bricks that I just was I wish they had this. I know the cheese slope selection generally sucked.
Really?
There was not as much.
Really? That's interesting.
Those are important.
Yeah, and they had every color of 1x1 plate, which is weird, but nowhere near that selection in the cheese slopes. And I love cheese slopes. Who doesn't love cheese slopes?
Yeah.
You use it in everything. Comes in every set ever produced, I swear. Find a set without a cheese.
Yeah.
I dare you.
Even a set that didn't have any will have an extra one in there for the extra parts at the cost. That's great. That's cool. That's good to know. Yeah, I feel like they really do try to give you as much as to work with. I mean, even when it comes to minifigs, you guys were able to pull off the little fisherman, and there was still all these characters within the minifig scale builds you guys were able to work with. So I just want to say that I liked the little, I don't know if it was on purpose, I assume it was, with the little classic castle call out on the top of your guys' castle.
Yeah,
with
the yellow.
That was pretty good. That was good to see there. I don't think anyone else did that, so that was awesome.
No, I was surprised. We might see an all yellow castle for that episode, and I'm sure Jamie would have freaked out over it. But yeah, we didn't. I definitely thought Mark and Steven might do that, but I think the white was a more interesting choice for them.
Totally.
Definitely.
Cool. So we've been going for about 45 minutes. I have one kind of like final big question, but is there anything else, Thrawn or Christian, off the top of your guys' head, something you want to get out there? Another question or two?
Yeah, I got one. What's a challenge you would like to see next year? Like some sort of idea that you have that you think would be really interesting to see on screen?
That's a good question. I know the contestants threw this one at each other a lot. But I would have loved to have seen an underwater challenge like Australia had done. I don't know what that looks like. If in America, it would have been the tsunami challenge, I'm sure, like let's throw some water at your build, see if it can survive. But on the Australian show, they actually submerged builds in a huge tank of water. And they had to hold together. And it was actually because you get to play with like the buoyancy of certain elements, but they were all underwater themed. And going into the show, Jacob and I knew that we wanted to make an underwater build, and we eventually did pull it off for the windmill episode. But it would have been really cool to have seen what everybody could have done with a build like that. I really was convinced that one might be coming, but it just never did.
I'm sure it will. I'm sure at some point they'll pull from the other worldwide shows. I know there's like a UK. Is there a UK or is it just Australia Lego Masters? There is.
There's Sweden. There is Polish Lego Masters. A New Zealand one is now. They're casting for season 4 of Australia. There's the UK. There's got to be like 10 different shows.
Wow, I had no idea there were that
crazy.
many. Oh my gosh! Wow.
Yeah, they're taking.
All right, Christian, you have one nail-biting question?
I do have one last one. So there's a ton of mechanisms that are used throughout the show, and something that I feel like comes up a ton in the challenges is like most of them could be used as engineering exercises. They're that technical. Was there any sort of briefing on different principles or, getting used to the system of mechanics and electronics that they were using? Because just sitting at home as an engineer myself, I would sit there and think like, here's how I would tackle this challenge for stability or for this or that. And it seemed like all the teams were like really in line with those principles. Are Lego Masters just fantastic engineers, or is there a sense of like, or a little bit of direction on how you should format some things?
No. The short answer is no. There was we were shocked going into season 2 at how engineering based it was, because season 1 was very much an artistic show, and so I think that's definitely what we expected. And episode 1, we had to incorporate motion into our build, and that's fine. We could see that coming, but then episode after episode, it is just technical engineering based skill. And so what was interesting about that, it was almost more luck that played into it, because a lot of us were on the same playing field in that we knew nothing about Lego Technic. And then there's Zach and Wayne, who are Zach. I don't know if you know Zach's his thing, but he builds our exclusively. And so like he's got an incredible amount of skill in that area. But the rest of us were just like, we had never used the powered up system before. And so really the only training that we got is some knowledge. We got a tutorial on how to use the basic coding app that's provided with the powered up system. And you can tell we're all incompetent because we're saying power functions all season long. We have no idea what it is. Like, and I miss the simplicity of power functions, flipping on the lever and it turns, and it's like, that's great. But so the coding was a challenge for a lot of people, and that was the downfall of Jacob and I in episode 10 for sure, because we spent hours trying to code like complex things, and our build kind of in the end kind of moves, and that's about it. Because we wanted to do the garage door opening and closing, but every time you powered off the app, it would reset and get out of sync, and there was just all this stuff that we just really don't know. But as you brought up, it is amazing to see how far some of us with no knowledge got, because you learn. You had no choice but to learn on the spot. There's a lot of trial and error, and you can see what other people were doing and what was and was not working. But definitely came out of that show with a lot more technical experience. That I think that's safe to say for anybody. You know, even Zach himself, the expert, is experimenting and learning new things. It was cool to see.
Definitely, I agree with you that the power up is super hard. I taught it to kids using WeDo, and it is a struggle to teach kids that programming. Sometimes they just do not understand.
Yeah, it's great to have that flexibility in a Lego product, but I miss just having the simplicity, you know, just, and the fact that you have to have like a compatible phone, I think limits the audience too, and we could go down this rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Maybe we shouldn't, but I likes my power functions. Hit the lever and it works.
Power functions is always better in my opinion too.
EDO is a whole nother conversation. that idea they had there. Well, awesome. Again, yeah. Any other like really big questions you, Thrawn, you or Christian have? Otherwise, I'll kind of like wrap it up with the kind of final note. You guys good?
No, I don't got anything.
I'm all good. I am good. You answered all my questions, man.
Yeah, you honestly, I got a lot more out of this too. I liked to hear about the fact that like just with given COVID protocols and everything, you guys were very close together, and it was just like the community is still running large. It's awesome to know Dave like made it to your wedding. Like that's so cool to know these little details of the behind the scenes kind of camaraderie that comes with a show like this. That's awesome. I guess my final thing is, and I guess it's a question, but just more of like your overall statements, your experience. I know we can't like talk about the ending because, you know, finale next week, but, you know, I think you could still probably touch on just the experience as a whole, what you gained from it, what you enjoyed about it, and how like it's definitely left you with any sort of change or new thoughts on just the community as a whole, new inspirations and all that, what it was just like.
Great question. I think you can tell from my dorky smile throughout the entirety of the show so far that I'm having a very good time. Lego Masters was a dream come true. It's the collision of my worlds because I work in video production and I am the diehard Lego fan. And to be in that space was truly incredible. And I couldn't have asked for something more amazing to happen. You know, it really came out of nowhere. It's not something that you expect to happen to you. And I just feel so lucky to have gotten that opportunity and for it to go so far as we did. You know, Jacob and I made it to the finale. It was just an incredible experience. We are so grateful every day, especially every day that we survived after the Sunshine Wagon, because we knew that day was the end. And so I think to some extent that episode, you know, was kind of the wake-up call. Like, we've been taking this thing too seriously. I think it's time to just have fun, embrace this moment. And there are times I would turn to my brother and say, like, hey, just look around you. Look where we're at, what we're doing, and just soak that up. Remember this moment because, you know, in a few weeks, it's going to be over one way or the other. And so I tried to share that positivity throughout it because you must understand that Lego Masters is the hardest thing I've ever done. It was so hard. It was, you know, I lost weight. I was stressed a lot. It wasn't eating super awesome, but it was so fun. And you better believe I would do it again, despite the hardships, the stress, because there's nothing quite like it. And, you know, it's hard to explain that because who goes on a reality show? Nobody. And I'm so glad that it was Lego Masters because Lego Masters is such a great family show. You know, if I was on The Bachelor, my life would be a little different. Like, I feel pretty good about my time on Lego Masters. And one of the greatest joys of my post-show experience has been talking to my #1 fans, who are children under the age of 12. And it is so cool to be this inspiration for the next generation of Lego builders. Because Lego has obviously been such an important part of my life. You know, Lego has always been a part of my life, and it's done amazing things for me. Between these contests and meeting these wonderful people, and forming this relationship with my twin brother, just because, to be totally honest, we don't have a whole lot in common. He's the math guy, I'm the arts guy, and we butt heads a lot. But Lego has been that common ground that we've always had. And as we went off to start our lives separately, he's moved, he's got a job in actuarial science. I'm married, I've moved out with my wife, and what a way to end our time together, you know, on TV, on Lego Master, doing that one thing that we love. I think that is really, really epic, because nobody else gets that, you know, that, I don't know, it makes me giddy thinking about all of it. It was great. It was wonderful to be a part of. So happy to have taken my brother with me. So, yeah, that was probably way too mushy gushy.
No, that was incredible.
That
That was
awesome,
great.
man.
Yeah.
That
That's
was
a great
like
insight.
perfect. That was amazing. That's awesome to know that that's what you were able to walk away with, Drew. It's really important to remember that while like there is a lot of adults that absolutely love Lego, it is almost in a way our responsibility to, you know, pass on the torch, you know, keep the flame alive, all that. That's amazing. Like Caleb, thank you so much for having the time and making the time to come on here and have this interview. I think I can speak for all of us when I say like we're so excited to see what you yourself are going to do in the future with Lego, and to see this finale coming out. We're just super stoked, and like, yeah, congrats on getting on the show and in general, and like, yeah, thanks for being here. Thanks for being here for this interview. It was amazing.
Thank you, guys. It's been so fun to watch your recaps all this time. And so I'm glad I got to join you guys for once and talk about this too, because
Totally.
it's a really fun
Yeah.
story,
Yeah.
fun
Totally
experience.
Cool.
Awesome.
And awesome. I got it
Thank you so
recorded.
much.
You guys want to? Yeah, you guys.
Yeah.